Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of 100 Apps, 100 Hours. I'm your host, Bryant Gillespie, developer advocate at Directus, and today we are tackling the elephant in the room, AI. So we're going to be building an AI app generator. By that, I mean an app that can update itself with new data models and new interesting ways to work. So, what's the inspiration for this? So I've been over the last couple of weeks, I've been seeing all these videos on X or Twitter, whatever it is, that show this application TL Draw, where you can go in and sketch something out inside this quick little application. Click a button, and it will use the OpenAI Vision API and some of their other tools, I guess, to actually generate real code that makes whatever you sketch come to life. So really excited by that. We're going to try to replicate something similar here. I'm calling this the Mighty Morphing App Ranger because I grew up with Power Rangers. It was one of my first Halloweens. So if you're new to the series, let's dive in. There are two rules. We have 60 minutes to plan and build this application, no more, no less. And the second rule is just use whatever you have at your disposal. So in this AI episode, it should be pretty interesting to see how far we can get with this. One of the ways that I want to start here is just by charting things out, and we'll try to upload that chart to ChatGPT or OpenAI and spit something back out that we can use. So without further ado, let's dive in and start building. So like I said, I like to plan everything first. So let's just draw some stuff on our artboard here and kind of sketch out what we want this actual application to do. So at the very beginning, we're going to draw a diagram. Diagram of an app. Upload. We want to send that to the application. Let's shrink this down. That's really large. All right. You can tell, even though I use Figma quite a bit, it's still not my strong suit. So we'll draw a diagram of an app. We will use OpenAI Vision to create a data model based on the diagram. And then we're going to update our app based on that code or data model automatically. So we want the app to automatically update itself. But before we dive into that, let's just try to proof the concept out, right? So let's draw an app. Let's start with something simple like a CRM. Here's our CRM app. What are the different data models or the different tables, the different collections, as we call them inside Directus, which is what we're going to be using for our back end and what we're going to build our application with. So we've got contacts. We probably got some organizations. We've got a relationship between those. We probably have some deals. And we can use some arrows for the relationships. And if we just look at contacts and orgs, we probably have maybe like a junction table or something here. I don't think I left enough room, but let's call this organization contacts. Give that a little more room. Okay. All right, so there's our basic diagram. Maybe we go in and spec some fields out for this as well. We've got a first name, last name, email, phone, title. Okay. We've got a name for the organization. We've probably got an address. We've got But what else is on the address? Oh, I got lost on my Figma file here. So address, name, we got some contacts. We probably got organizations that those contacts belong to. That's probably good enough. For the deal, we probably have a deal name, deal value, and what else? Close date, maybe? All right, so that is a pretty simple CRM app. Let's make our diagram pretty. And now let's just take a screenshot of this and let's just proof this concept out. We can use just the regular chat GPT for this because it has that underlying vision API that we're going to use once we start building our app. But I can upload this into chat GPT and say something like this. You are a SQL, Postgres, and Directus master. Please create a SQL query. SQL query that will create the data model for this CRM application as designed in the diagram attached. Please fill in and make the data model more robust. So honestly, I'm just curious to see if this will actually work to begin with. What happens? Oh no. Did I lose all of that? Did that really happen? Open this up. Oh no. Okay. Well, that's the hazards of the job, right? Restore recently closed. Please, you are a Postgres and Directus master. No hidden camera tricks on this show. Just fun here. Sometimes you fat finger one of these. Please create a SQL statement, SQL query that will create the data model for our app as in the diagram. No, the conversation is not helpful so far. Let's do a new chat. Restore recently closed. All right, sometimes the technology doesn't work out so well. Please create a SQL query for Postgres. That's the database we're using. That will create an app. It'll create the data model for an app based on the diagram. All right, I'm going to copy this just so I don't have to. What in the world is going on? All right, let's just try this again. Holy moly. Wow. Okay. So we've eaten up a lot of time there just messing with Chat GPT. That's a lot of fun, but let's see what this comes up with. Looks like it has to create a SQL data model, SQL code. So if we just look at this, we've got a contacts table. That's good. We've got the organizations table. We've got a associative table. That's the junction table. We have a table for our deals, and then we have some kind of statement that is altering the table. Okay, please rewrite to use UUID to add a primary key of ID for all the tables and use UUIDs. Just want to make sure we all have a primary key for each one. All right. Cool. Okay, so now we've got the IDs. We're using the UUID instead of just an integer there. All right. Great. Okay, so looking at this, we can test it out, right? How are we going to test this out? So what I've got set up for this app is basically a Docker Compose file that I'm using to generate my backend, which is Directus. And if I pull up my Directus instance and just log in, so we go to admin at example.com. We do password. We'll log in, and if I zoom in just a little bit, you can see this is a completely blank app. Nothing here. So what Directus does behind the scenes, it sits alongside your Postgres database, and it will introspect that database, which basically means any changes that you make inside that database or any SQL database, doesn't have to just be Postgres, it will mirror those changes in real time. Sounds great. How does it work in application? All right, so we go in. Let's just pull up this database inside Table Plus, right? So I could see all of my Directus tables here. There's no other tables. We've got some items in here for like PostGIS, just so we can do geodata inside here. But let's just copy and paste this inside the application. Or inside Table Plus, and we're going to run this SQL query. The only thing that I'm going to do here is just change this application. I'm going to change the organization contacts. And what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to change this so that there is a ID, and that's the primary key instead of a composite key. But other than that, let's just run this thing. So we'll hit run all. Okay, altered table has been altered. If I refresh, we can see that we have created those different tables and the associated columns. Great. Now, if I load up Directus, I can see that Directus, and just refreshing the screen, has recognized that those tables are inside our database. So I can go through and click to configure these tables. We can see that my different fields are coming through. And if we click on those, we can configure what the actual UI would look like for these things. So if I just go through and click on a few of them, maybe we want to hide this specific field. Directus really easily allows you to update this data and the presentation of it. So basically now we're just controlling the form that displays when we add a new contact. So let's just edit that a little bit. Put the title down there. Great. Yeah. So if we go in, we refresh, we've got our contacts, and now I could go in and add my contact. Great. 555, 555, 555, looking great. Bryant at Directus.io, and I'm a developer advocate. Cool. So now if I go into Table Plus here, we can also see there's my record, right? So Directus is really nice in that it mirrors everything, but it also gives me a REST-based API. So I could go in and any of those collections, if I were to just give read access to just the general public. We could also create different user roles here. But if I were to go in and just copy my address, I could do something like this, where I do items/contacts, and boom, I get a ready to use REST or GraphQL API that we can use to build our backend with. That's great. This is really cool. How can we take this further, right? How can we make this application able to adjust itself, right? What does that actually look like? So Directus has built-in automation using flows. So flows, you could set up any type of simple or complex automation for your data. You can make third-party API calls, receive incoming webhooks, all of those great things. And I'm thinking we can use a combination of flows and Chat GPT or the OpenAI API, that's a mouthful, to actually be able to send this a prompt, have it update the data model automatically. Now, there are multiple ways to adjust the schema or your data model of a Directus application. So if we look at the documentation, Directus actually has some schema endpoints where you can go and snapshot your data model. So you make a request, your schema, let's see if we see the sample response. This is the diff, so it actually takes a snapshot of the existing schema and then compares that with what you've got and comes up with a difference. But it's basically a bunch of JSON data that represents the data model inside our database, inside our Directus instance. It is a fairly specific and complex syntax, though. So I'm not sure about OpenAI being able to actually parse this. I'm really concerned about the accuracy for this, because it's kind of a niche syntax that it has to adhere to, right? So maybe we could go this SQL route, because it seems like OpenAI understands SQL pretty well. Just guessing. I'm not sure if it does or not. I guess we'll find out. Right. So how can we actually do this? Directus, it doesn't allow you to run raw SQL, rightfully so. Easy way to blow up your database. But I think that's how we're going to have to do this. So what can we do? Let's reach for a custom extension. So I'm just going to go to the docs. We're going to create an extension. And so let's pull up our application. I'll just open this up. All right, so we've got the npx command. Yes, we will create a Directus extension. And there are a couple different types of Directus extensions that you can create. I say a couple, I mean, there's a lot of Directus extensions, but what we're going to do is create an endpoint that we can call and run that actual with a SQL query provided by OpenAI, and run that actual query. So first off, foremost, Nat, maybe we can get like a big disclaimer on here. Do not do this sort of thing in production. Our engineering and security team will probably both be mad at me for this, but we're going to do the custom endpoint extension. What are we going to call this? Let's just call it raw SQL is the name of our extension. We can use TypeScript. That's fine. And boom. So Directus will go through and scaffold out this extension. I can see it here inside my raw SQL. Cool. All right. So now what I want to do, I'm just going to drag and drop this into our extensions endpoints folder directory. And I'm going to do one other thing here as well. When we actually build this extension, I'm just going to drop it into the root of that raw SQL directory instead of a distribution or dist directory because it has to be inside the root directory for Directus to pick up on that. All right, so now we're going to go to extensions / endpoints / raw SQL. Okay, we're going to do npm run dev, or it says npm run dev. So let's run that. And one of the other things that I've got, if you are working locally with Directus, you're building extensions, probably one of the things that you want to do inside your config is set up this extensions auto reload, which basically means anytime that you rebuild that extension, which we're doing here, it will reload that without having to restart the Directus instance for you, which is nice when you are building. All right, so if we take a look at our existing extension here, we hit save, it's going to build that endpoint for us, and looks like Directus is reloading extensions. So now if I go to our Directus URL, localhost 8055, and I do raw SQL, we get this hello world, right? Great. But what do we want to actually do now? We want to actually run a raw SQL query. So how do we actually make that work? How do we get that done? Underneath the hood, Directus is currently using a query builder called Connects or Nex, or I never know how to say this thing, if you pronounce the K or not. But it does have a raw it has a raw query object or a raw method that you can call to actually run a raw statement against your database. Again, giant disclaimer. The lawyers say don't do this in production because it is super easy to blow up your database. And also, don't trust AI fully to build your application for you. Lots of red flags on this one, but should be interesting nonetheless, right? So what are we going to do? We are going to look for our custom endpoints, and Directus gives us access to that underlying database instance. So the endpoint receives the router and the context. So if we do something like this, we've got our context. If I can actually type, and we're going to do, let's make this a post route, and where do we, let's just call it raw SQL run. All right, cool. So we'll wrap this in a try catch, and what are we going to do? We are going to pick up the query from the body. Yeah, okay. And we are going to do what? We're going to do something like this where we have context.database, context.database.raw, and then we're going to run that query, and then we are going to return the result. All right, let's do our catch. Error.message. Now let's see what happens if I refresh. Raw SQL, nothing happens on this, but let's go to run. Raw SQL does not exist. That's great. We wanted to not work when we run that, but let's just open up something like Postman so we could quickly test this. I'm not really a curl guy. I always struggle with the command line. All right, so we will pop this in. We've got raw SQL run, and we should be passing what, a raw JSON. Okay. And we've got our query. And let's just say select from what contacts. All right, we hit posts. Raw SQL run does not exist. Why is that? Raw SQL / run. Why do we not exist? Great question. We are 36 minutes in. Raw SQL run does not exist. All right, let's see. We're getting await can't. Oh, the. This needs to be what? Async. Okay, boom. All right, so we just ran a raw database query. So you can see that query here, and it is returning the result from that query. All right, great. One of the other things that we could do here, just to make this a little more robust, would be to use the accountability object that gets included inside our services here. Where is this at? So each request, we could take a look at the accountability. So we could do something like this, where only an admin user could do this. So if rec underscore dot accountability dot user dot is admin? Is that what it is? I think that's it. Only admins can run raw SQL queries. Did I spell that right? Rec dot accountability. Let's see. Only admins can run raw SQL queries. So now we have to be logged in to actually run that. And cool. So now if I go to our admin user and just generate an access token, and if I pass that in our authentication here as a bearer token, okay, cool. So we've added a little bit of auth to this endpoint to run our SQL queries against the production database. Great. All right, so now we've got our application here, and I refresh. I can see we got contacts, deals, organizations. How we doing on time? Let's go in and let's add a new collection. We're just going to call it app transformations, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. We could probably even call it like AI migrations or something like that, right? We'll generate a type for it. Do we really need these extra fields? Maybe we can do that. All right. All right. So let's here's the prompt. And I'm trying to think of ways that we could make this more robust. Let's do the SQL. Let's call this the query. And let's add another field. Maybe we could ask OpenAI to give us a way to undo. Okay. All right. So now if we do this, yeah, maybe we should have had that status field as well. Has it been applied or not? So let's just do a drop down. Let's add status, and we'll do applied, unapplied, unapplied. Okay, and then any default values here will be unapplied. Cool. All right. Great. Okay, so now we've got our AI migrations. Um, I could go with the chart thing, but we could also make this fun where anybody can create new data for this or new applications. So let's start by building our flow first. All right, so flows are how we automate data inside Directus. So let's create a new flow and we'll say call OpenAI. And we could trigger this a couple of different ways. We could trigger it manually, or we could do it on a event hook in this case. So when a different event happens inside the platform, we trigger this flow. Let's do the action non-blocking, and then we'll do anytime we create a new item in AI migrations, we'll trigger this flow. So I'm just going to stop here. We'll go to AI migrations, and we'll say create a Postgres data model for an LMS. Right. So I save this. And if I go back to my flow, and if I actually make this a little larger where you can see it, I can see my logs over here on the right-hand side. Here's our payload. There's the prompt. And then we can see other things like our accountability. Is this a logged in user or not? Great. All right, so let's move on to the next step, right? Once we've got that prompt, we'd want to pass that to OpenAI. So let's call what OpenAI? I don't even know what to call this. Call AI. We're going to call the API, and we are looking for the webhook and request URL. So we'll go in, and I'm pretty sure this will be a post request, but let's just open up OpenAI. Let's open up their platform. Got our API keys. So we're going to need a new API key. This will be deleted by the time you guys watch, so please don't try to steal my API keys here. But if we look at their documentation, right? We've got the different models like GPT-4. That's probably the best one that we want to use. GPT-4 Turbo improved instruction following. So maybe that's the model we want to use. Let's do this. Chat completions. So if we're doing this via curl, all right, here's the endpoint that we're probably going to hit. Great. Okay. All right, so if I just separate these two, we'll drag that over. Got our text generation. So let's copy this URL. There's our chat completions. For our headers, we're going to have content-type. Got application JSON. All right. And then we have our authorization. We have bearer. And I got my API key. I'll just copy paste that there. All right. So in the body of the request is where the meat and potatoes are here. All right. So for our model, let's use the most expensive one, right? Where's our models at? GPT-4 Turbo. That one has a vision. Okay, great. Let's just use this guy here, 1106. Fancy. All right, so we've got our model that we're going to use, and then we give it a prompt, right? You are a helpful assistant, user assistant. Let me just edit this in my text editor real quick. All right, so we're going to do something like this, where this is going to be our trigger.payload.prompt. We'll delete the rest of these. And then let's give it some system instructions, right? But let's use ChatGPT for that as well, right? So write some instructions for Chat GPT-4 model. Write some system instructions that will always make it generate SQL queries that create well-rounded data models for apps as described by users. Let's see what it comes back with this. Really weird kind of having a conversation with AI in this case. Generally created, blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. Normalization. Include comments. Is this actually going to give me something or not? Let's take a look at what we're at. We got 25 minutes left. Chat GPT here is like killing me with the details here. All right, so I guess we could just go with this. Let's just type something out. You are a Postgres and Directus expert, full stack developer. Users will describe an application, and you will write a SQL query that will build the data model for that application. Use your expert knowledge to create a more robust application than the user has described. Do not use composite keys. Use only UUID for primary keys. Call the primary key fields what? ID. Use your best judgment to create the data model. Okay, sounds good. There's our prompt. Okay, we'll just paste this into the body. We'll hit save. And let's just look at this real quick. There's our payload. Trigger, payload, prompt. Okay. All right, let's see what we're going to get back from here. And then maybe I just want to go in and actually update that. So we'll say update migration. And maybe we can make this a two-step process where maybe we'll just run it. We'll see. So we got update data. Let's go into our migration, and then we have trigger dot key, and the payload here is going to be query, and what did we call that? Let's just do this. Just leave that blank for now. Let's give it a shot, right? Let's see what happens. Please help me build a LMS. There are many courses. Each course has several modules, and each module as many lessons. Okay, so if I save this, that should call the OpenAI API and return some data, or return something, right? Why are we not getting any logs here? Did this actually happen? What's going on here? All right, let's try it one more time. Or maybe it's still building. What's going on? Not sure. We are at 21 minutes remaining. Okay, yeah, it just takes a little while. All right, so here's our payload from OpenAI. Okay, so we can already see there's a problem here, right? It is returning. It's returning additional stuff, which kind of sucks. So we need to adjust our prompt for that, right? You will only return the SQL query. And what was that I saw about JSON mode? Maybe that is something we can use here. Text generation, JSON mode. Okay, yeah, that's probably what we need to enable. How do we do that? Response format, type JSON objects. Okay, let's give this a shot, shall we? All right, so save this. And maybe I will, let me just delete these other prompts that we've got. And actually, we could probably, we've got enough data now that we should be able to pick this up. Get choices back. Okay. So we would just have to access this, but let's run it one more time just to see. Help me build an LMS. There are many courses. Each course has several modules, blah, 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 blah. So we are waiting for ChatGPT to come back. But while we do that, oh, less than a minute. That's quick. Bad request. Dum-dum. Okay. Response format. JSON object, messages. I goofed something up. We'll just leave that there. Is this valid JSON? Looks like it. Let's try again. All right, delete. Okay. Prompt. Flows. Logs. Okay, so now it's doing its thing. What could we do next, right? We're going to run that SQL that it returns against that endpoint automatically. Kind of a scary thing, but let's see what we've got. Has it returned yet? No, still hasn't returned. All right, we'll wait on that. There we go. Okay. All right, so what's the payload coming back? Okay, so there's the SQL statement. Okay. And all right, so it's just returning the query. When using JSON mode, produce some JSON via message for conversation. Response format. Yeah, I feel like we need to set this response format. I'm not sure what I did wrong the last time. Model response format. Type JSON object. Is this invalid JSON or something? Not sure. looks fine to me. Let's try it one more time. Otherwise, we'll just have to do something more interesting. I would just have to like replace those last 2 or 3 characters. Clipboard, help me build an LMS. Cool. All right, if this bricks, we'll just go back to what it was. Yeah. Bad request. We could not parse the JSON body of your request. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. All right. Okay. So anyway, there's our data. All right, so what are we getting back from the API when this actually works? We're getting something like this. So let's do I'm just going to copy and paste this. So here's our response. Okay. Great. All right. So let's do an intermediate step where we're just going to clean this data up. We'll go into run script, clean up query. And we're going to do what? We're going to get the data. So the query equals data.call_call AI dot what? Dot data dot choices, first item in the array, dot message dot content. Okay, and then we are going to remove the first 3 characters, right? Okay, and let's just use AI again, right? Fun. Where did OpenAI go? All right, ChatGPT. Let's create a new conversation. Maybe we could use 3.5 for this because it's faster. Write a JavaScript function to remove the 3 backticks and the ... SQL. Okay, cool. So remove the backticks and the SQL code. Cool. All right. There we go. There's our cleaned SQL code function. And then we're just going to return that. Return cleaned SQL code. All right, so let's make sure that's going to get what we need. We got data. We got replace content, choices, message, content. Okay, let's give it a shot. Okay, and now for the next trick, we are going to post that to our endpoint, right? So we will grab our local host. We're going to do raw SQL /run. It's going to be a post. We are going to do what? Authorization bearer. And this is going to be our token that we used here. All right, so this is the token for our Directus user. What else do we need? Do we need anything else? Authorization. We probably ought to add content type. Application /JSON. Great. All right. Okay, so what are we looking at? What this should do is anytime we create a migration it will call OpenAI, ask it to generate that SQL, clean up that SQL, and then run that SQL command against our database. So if this goes right, it could basically be an application that could build itself. If it goes wrong, it's going to blow this thing up entirely. All right, so we got about 11 minutes left. Let's just test this out, right? We've got our LMS prompt. Let's do it and see. Help me build an LMS. Each course has several modules. Each module has several lessons. All right, flows. Okay, so it hasn't come back yet. It is running. If I pop open Directus, let's open our Docker container. Go to the dashboard. We got Docker running here. We've got our 100 apps. I can see the activity here, but we're not sure what's going on. All right, so still running. If we take a look at our data model, nothing's happening yet. Here we go. Okay, so we got the data back from OpenAI. SQL code is not defined. Okay, so some issues, and it's still not returning what we need. The raw SQL query. Do not return anything else except for the raw SQL query. So sometimes AI is unreliable. And then we have what I must have goofed when SQL code.replace. Oh, duh. That's a query. Okay. All right, let's try again. Just delete this guy. Now this could get really fun where like you have AI itself, like on a cron job or something, just manually creating these prompts or automatically creating these prompts. So, okay. That kicks everything off. What are we going to do in the meantime while we wait, right? I don't know. I've got a list of dad jokes that we could go through here if you guys want. I struggle with Roman numerals until I get to 159. Then it just clicks. CLIX. Yeah. Okay, so if I look, here is my raw SQL that ran. If I look at the data model, no, flows. All right, so let's look at our logs. Here's a minute ago. Internal server error. Cannot read properties of replace. Okay, so there's our raw SQL. Did I forget to actually call the SQL? What an idiot. Sometimes you have brain farts. All right, so I forgot to actually paste in the query there, so it wasn't running anything. So this is going to be cleanup query. All right, so if you remember, we are passing a query string into this. So we'll do this, cleanup query, and that should solve the problem. All right. Last time, right? Hopefully this goes through. Help me build the LMS. Fun with AI and code. How are we doing on time? We got 7 minutes left to prove this concept. All the engineers on our team are probably very upset if they're watching this. They put a lot of hard work into security and making sure people don't do silly things like this. All right. So webhook request, bad request, invalid payload. Why is it an invalid payload? JSON. Body query. Should we just wrap that in a... What do we need to do here? All right, so we reformat dot replace. Should we remove that bit? I don't know if we need to JSON stringify that. I guess we could. Return JSON.stringify. Not sure what that's going to do. And then maybe even, let's at least save that query so we can pull it up later, right? So we'll update that. We'll do this with the cleanup request, cleanup query. All right, working on a time crunch here. What's going on? Fields to resolve, save, edit. Some kind of weird behavior happening. We save JSON, unexpected token. I don't know. Let's try it again. Help me build an LMS. Flows. All right. So we'll just wait a minute. So what's the thing about these AI? They take a little time, especially the really fancy models, right? Logs less than a minute ago. Bad request. Why can't we get this to run? Unexpected token. Payload. Did it update? Let's just look at the, okay. So if we were to pop this in there, assuming we remove this, if we were to pop this inside table plus, right? So if we open up our database, we go in, we run this SQL query. Does this actually work? Run all. Okay, so it doesn't really jive. Okay. So whatever we had previously should be what we go back to. All right. When in doubt, turn to AI. I don't know, man. This one is challenging. I thought we could totally get this done. We are not able to pass this. Let's just do this where we go into our query. We return query. That's going to be our cleaned SQL code. All right, so we're returning that, and then we're going to pass that clean up query directly. So if I go into edit raw value, clean up query. Okay. And then I'm just going to disconnect this piece for now. Ah, man. Okay. Cutting it against the clock. I don't know why I'm always up against the clock on this particular show. All right. Let's try something else, right? Help me build a CRM. No. Build an e-commerce platform for selling watches. Products, categories, prices. Let's just see what it comes back with. Flows, less than a minute. Call OpenAI. Bad request. Okay, why is that? Let's just try the standby here. Help me build. All right. Okay, so that's doing its thing. We will try this as well. And otherwise, if it doesn't come back in the next 50 seconds, it feels like a public fail to me. Man, I was really hoping we could get this one to work properly. Sometimes it doesn't work out, though. This one would be one to do a follow-up on, though, right? Oh, boy. Okay. Let's see what we got here, right? Did this actually do what it wanted to do? Oh, there we go. How about that, right? So now we've got our courses. Let's take a look. We've got a title and description. If we look at our lessons, what do we have? We've got title and content. We've got our modules that has our course relationship all ready to go for us, right? Whoa, look at that. Guys, at the buzzer, we came through. This is now a Mighty Morphing App Ranger that will build itself, right? What can we do next with this? We could go in and create these prompts, but I could go in and do this, like call a cron job. Let's just explore it further. I just want to take this just to one more stop. So if we do create new prompts and at what, let's just make it what every, I forget the syntax. What is the Google, what's the cron syntax? I want to say it's like we use the 6-digit syntax. Okay. Seconds, minutes, hours. Okay. So again, ChatGPT, just for fun, what is create a cron syntax statement that will run every 2 minutes? Okay. All right. So running every 2 minutes. There we go. Got that. So I'm just going to go back into my Directus application. Where are you? Where did it go? Got too much going on. Is it over here? Okay. All right. So we've got our cron syntax. That's going to trigger. And then look, what if we call OpenAI again? Okay. I tell you what, let's do this on a follow-up. We're going to eat up a lot of time here, but just to prove that this is working again, let's do, please help me build an e-commerce platform for selling watches, pricing. Let's just leave it at that, right? Let's see what it does. Dun dun dun, call, create new prompts. 3 minutes ago. Okay, this is coming back. And again, I could watch my Directus instance. just to see if it is running that SQL statement. I don't see it running just yet. OpenAI is still thinking. But wow, guys, this one was really fun. Pretty crazy what you can generate with AI. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Stay tuned for more episodes in the series. And did it actually work? 500 internal server error. What happened? Please make sure. Okay. It tried to kick something else out to that. So it requires some fine tuning on the AI, but I think this is totally viable and totally an interesting project to build an app that can update and change itself. So that's it for this episode. Thanks for sticking around. Catch you on the next episode.